Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be back this month of March. I'd like to use play on words now that Nigeria is marching on in spite of the challenges the nation is witnessing in the past 1 month. Welcome to the People's Parliament. This is an initiative of Rescue Nigeria Changemakers. This month, we're looking at the topic, what must change for Nigeria to work? What needs to change for Nigeria's power problem to be resolved? What must we do for our national grid to not continually collapse? Is it about national grid or national greed? Welcome again. We have distinguished panelists this afternoon joining us from across the world. I welcome all of you, our participants, I like to say. My name is Ade-Oyeniiran, Treasurer. I welcome you to another time for a conversation about Nigeria. We must not relent. Nigeria must definitely move on. We must see the Nigeria of our dreams. Let me welcome our panelists. We have the distinguished Muhtar Bakare, and we have Professor Boniface Oye-Adeniran, and then we have Ikechukwu and Amaechi. In a bit, I'll be reading their profiles. These are distinguished Nigerians. I'd like to welcome them this way. Amaechi said, and I quote, Ikechukwu Amaechi said, and I quote, "But this you owe me attitude has become insufferable. The penchant to inconvenience others without thinking," which is what this is all about, is part of the reason why Nigeria is where it is. That's Ikechukwu Amaechi. I welcome you to the Parliament today. Let me quickly go to Professor Boniface Oye-Adeniran. He said, and I quote, "It is inconceivably derelict on the part of our anti-corruption agencies to wait for foreign governments to identify for us as a nation our corrupt public servants." And moving on, our third guest today, let me quickly go down there. Our third guest, Muhtar Bakare, says, I'm trying to call up that, but in the meantime, let me quickly technology. Let me just leave it at that and go to the bio of our guests today. Mr. Muhtar Bakare, I know, is a publisher, he's a venture capitalist, he is also a board member of Radio Now, which is one of the radio stations making waves in Nigeria today. Mr. Muhtar Bakare attended King's College, Lagos, went on to obtain a BSc and an MSc in architecture from OAU. He completed a senior executive program for Africa at Harvard University Business School and Wits University Business School in South Africa in 2003. He started out in banking at Citibank, Nigeria in 1991 as a management associate, during which he completed an 18-month executive program. I can go on and on and on. He went on to manage import and export processing of the bank in the Trade Services Department. Mr. Bakare currently sits on the board of emerging businesses and publishing, financial services, technology, real estate, educational services. He's particularly interested in business operating at the intersection of financial services, technology, and education. We hope that he'll bring all of that to bear in the conversation this afternoon. Moving on, Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi is one of the distinguished journalists in Nigeria today. He's the publisher of The Niche, which he set up in 2014. He was formerly the editor of Daily Independent newspaper. He holds postgraduate degrees in international journalism at the Cardiff University, Wales, and Pol Science in Unilag. He also holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Education and Government from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I remember him being a member of the CNN Multi-Choice African Journalist of the Year panel. I think that was a year after I was a panelist at that award ceremony. He's a recipient of the prestigious Chevening Scholarship from the British government. But he cut his professional teeth at the Guardian newspaper way back in 1993. He's worked with the news magazine, the defunct Diet newspaper. He joined independent newspaper as deputy editor, Daily Independent, in 2004. He's an award-winning journalist, NMMA Editor of the Year. I mean, he has a string of awards to his name and his career. He's been a lecturer at the Center for Media Enterprises. He's one of 10 African journalists that toured India in 2009 in an exchange program expected to cement the relationship between India and the African continent. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to come back to the bios of our panelists today as we go on. Professor Boniface Oye-Adeniran, MNI, is a retired professor of obstetrics and gynecology from the College of Medicine, University of Lagos. Is a member, University of Lagos Governing Council from 2017 he was to 2019. He's the past national president, Nigerian Medical Association, and he retired from the Unilag College of Medicine. He's been speaking about Nigeria lately, and we hope that we will get more from the distinguished professor in the course of our conversation today. What must change for Nigeria to work? That's the question, the all-important question. What must change? Is it about personal leadership, national leadership, organizational leadership? What must change? So I pivot back to the panelists at this juncture. I'm going to start with Prof, who said in his quote, it's inconceivably derelict for us to expect foreigners to pick out corrupt public servants for us. So I welcome you all three panelists. Let me start with you, Professor Adeniran. Talk to us about this particular quote for this conversation in 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Funke. I think with that quote, I can start with the fact that the greatest problem we have in Nigeria today, number one problem, is corruption. And immediately after corruption is the issue of security. We need security, it is power. After power, health. After health, education. The other ones are transportation, water, and communication. So I'll start with corruption. President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015 said, and I quote, that if we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill us. In which case, the number one problem we have today is corruption. There is enough for every Nigerian, enough resources, but there is not enough resources for every Nigerian's greed. That is where we are in Nigeria today. As one of guest speakers on one of the Zoom, on one occasion, we had a Zoom meeting in Nigeria. The guest speaker said, if we must solve corruption, we must start from the top. In which case, if we are not going to hold people at the top accountable, then we cannot stop corruption. I wonder whether I can go on to analyze.
Well, You'll have to hold on there. You've pretty much set the tone for the conversation this afternoon. You've talked about the very many areas Nigerians need to look at in looking for a change and for things to work for Nigeria. Let me come back to you for now. Let me circle to Ikechukwu Amaechi, my distinguished colleague in the media. Ikechukwu, you said, but this you owe me attitude has become insufferable. The penchant to inconvenience others without thinking. You said that is what this is all about. And it's the reason, one of the reasons why Nigeria is where it is. How do you mean? I have a right to demand something from you, don't I?
You do, Funke, but you don't demand it as if you have this right to do. There is this mentality that is the bane of Nigeria today.
Okay. So then let me come to distinguished Muhtar Bakare. Talk to us about your quote. I am finding it difficult to bring up your quote, but please talk to us about your quote before you finish. I'll bring it up.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I believe that I said something about nations not growing organically like trees, that nations are built intentionally and deliberately by men and women.
Right. And let me quickly jump in. I remember, and then hello, Muhtar Bakare, I remember. And when I saw your quote, I wanted to, the question that came to me was, well, the trees are long suffering, they have longevity, they have the resilience. And why are you saying we shouldn't liken, our development to that of the tree? So that's the question I wanted to ask you first.
If you plant an orange seed and you tend it, you expect that you can harvest it in about 6 or 7 years. But nothing in history suggests that if we do not get our acts together, that we will have a nation we're all proud of, even after 1,000 years. That is a difference. Because sometimes, people say, oh, we will figure it out. And people tend to say things like, we'll figure it out. Oh, okay, let's just see what happens in the next 10 years. And then we also default to what that's our normal comfort zone. We leave it to God or we pray about it. But nations are not built based on these sentiments. The modern nation state is a deliberate creation at some point in history. Like people who wanted to solve certain problems in their society or in the relationships between communities in certain geographical areas. And that we found ourselves in this space and we have to live together and we have to make it work. So it's a very rational, in a sense, a very rational undertaking. And all the templates that we tend to copy, they are derived from this rational foundation. That's why we have a constitution. That's why we have organs of government. Men and women sat back and thought about the best way to organize themselves and put these institutions in place. So that is what I mean. So if we do not build our nation deliberately and have clearly in our mind the outcome we seek, we always end up with this kind of confusion. So I think the fundamental problem of the Nigerian state is that there's no consensus among the federating units about the kind of nation that they want. The average American or European or Rwandese or currently Ghanaian or the Botswana, they have a clear idea about the kind of nation that they want, what the citizens should expect from the nation, and the obligations of the citizens to the nation. They have to be clearer. and people have to buy from different parts of the country. That's what I was trying to articulate.
Thank you very much. Fantastic panelists we have this afternoon on the People's Parliament. We're talking about what must change for Nigeria to work. I like that Professor Adeniran talked about corruption, security, power, health, education, transportation, water, and communication. Those are the areas we've identified as areas we need to look at. If corruption do not kill us, if we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill us. That's what you said. Ikechukwu, I hear you. And finally, our panelist, the third panelist, Muhtar Bakare, you talked about having no consensus about among the federating units in Nigeria about the kind of nation we want. Now, you've all set the tone for the conversation this afternoon. What's not working for Nigeria, we already know. What's not working for Nigerians in the past, if we didn't know, in the past 1 month, we've struggled with power. How did we get ourselves into this big jam? And what needs to change? How can those changes happen? How long will this travel time be from point where we are to point destination where we want to be? I see that Ikechukwu is back. If you're back, you can quickly say something before I go back to Professor Adeniran.
Yes, I'm back, and I'm sorry for the interruption. That is technology for you, this part of the world. So, as I was saying, I said there is this entitlement culture, which for me is the bane of what we are experiencing in the country today. But beyond that, what must change for Nigeria to make progress, for Nigeria to move from where we are now to where we ought to be, is the leadership recruitment problem. Like Professor Chinua Achebe wrote in his pamphlet titled The Problem with Nigeria, he did say that the problem with Nigeria simply is, and squarely, is a failure of leadership. For me, all these issues we are talking about, whether it is power failure, whether it is corruption, whether it is insecurity, they all boil down to failure of leadership. And that failure of leadership starts from the recruitment process, the way we recruit our leaders. Last night, I stayed awake all night watching the APC National Convention yesterday. And
Isaac can take you. I will drive.
hello, can you hear me?
Okay.
We can hear you. I can.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
help me organize anything.
So I watched it,
Okay.
and again, I came out with the impression that before we realize it, we have another fait accompli in terms of leadership recruitment, because the over 7,000 APC delegates that converged in Abuja yesterday, they had no input into who emerged what in that convention. So we now have a PDP national chairman that was not elected by the delegates that came from all over the country. But that man is going to superintend over the conduct of the PDP primaries, APC primaries. At the end of the day, we will have a match from the primaries, presidential candidates of the political parties that the people did not have any input into their emergence. And then these are the people who are going to be presented to Nigerians next year to vote for. So the leadership recruitment process must change if we are to get it right at the level of leadership. And if we don't get it right at the level of leadership, no matter what we do, no matter how patriotic, Nigerians, for God's sake, are some of the most productive people in the world. Nigerians are enterprising. Nigerians are technology savvy. So how is it and why is it that these same people migrate and go?
I know you have a lot to say. Let me pause you there. Let me pause you there so we can go round. Pretty much, you talked about the recruitment process in terms of national leadership for the nation. Let me come back to Muhtar Bakare and ask, of all these leadership issues, do you agree, first of all, do you agree with Ikechukwu about the recruitment process being the very basic problem that we have? I talked about personal leadership and organizational leadership as well, and then national leadership. Let's have your own view about where the problem lies in Nigeria and where the change should start from. Prof, if you're there, please respond to that. Hello, Prof, are you there?
Okay, you want me to contribute to what he has said, or you want me to continue from where I left?
Do you agree with him? And if you do not, why? And then tell us what you think.
Yes, before we talk about leadership, I think we should talk about the citizenry. The citizenry has a lot to contribute to solving the problem in Nigeria. That's what I think. I agree with him partly that we need the leadership, but we must start with the citizenry. The citizenry must contribute its own quota. For example, the corruption I talk about. Everybody wants a corrupt-free Nigeria, but nobody wants to report any corrupt official. It's like what Bob Marley said. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. That is what is happening in Nigeria.
But Prof, do you remember that there was one time when we had the Whistleblower Policy? So I think there was a deliberate effort from the government to have people report corrupt officials. And then we did remember us having some revelations at that time.
Yes, I remember we had a whistleblower policy, but I don't know why it suddenly stopped. There were problems about identifying the whistleblower. There were problems about payment. I know that was reported in the press. But far from the whistleblower, some people have reported corrupt officials to EFCC, ICPC. People are being discouraged because no actions are being taken over what has been reported. I give you an example. A CEO, or let me be specific, a vice chancellor was reported for a contract scam of 5 billion naira since August 2020. EFCC has not concluded investigation. That's what discouraged many people. And that's why people are not coming forward. The attitude is, what are they going to do next when I report? They're not going to act. For example, the present chairman of EFCC is busy chasing low-hanging fruit, that is the internet fraudsters. Since he assumed office, I have not had any conviction of any high-brow public servant that has been taken to court. So the point is, the anti-corruption agencies must be effective for us to get rid of corruption. And people must be encouraged to report, and they must see results.
All right. Thanks very much, Professor Adeniran there. Let me come to Muhtar Bakare. Sir, I was wondering, do you agree with Ikechukwu that the blame is about the recruitment process in the nation? Do you agree with W. Croft, who's been leaving chats comments in the chat for us that it must be the fault of the citizen, and that everyone comes from a home and from the society before you aspire to the national leadership. What's your take on this, if you disagree with both?
I don't disagree with any of the panelists or the contributors offline on online. You see, sometimes the way we look at this issue is like the 5 blind men encountering the elephant and trying to describe what they've encountered, right? But we need to take a holistic view. We are trying to build a nation, and a nation state itself is a kind of technology. It's a system. There are elements of that system that have to be in place for it to work. Or if any element is dysfunctional, the whole will not work the way it should work. But there's something about a nation state, right? It's a system that is situated in a sociological context. It is in a place, in geography, and in history. So we cannot take ideas from Europe and America and operationalize them here and expect to get the same results as they are getting in Europe or America. We have to develop homegrown results. And I'm going to flesh this out. It is true that citizens have a role to play. It is true that the problem of Nigeria is a problem of leadership. But what is the relationship between the citizen, the leaders, and the state? At the center of the problem of Nigeria, right, is the crisis of the individual, the alienation of the individual from the state. The individual in Nigeria has not been able to assert himself or herself within the Nigerian state. In terms of what is somebody might call it, in terms of what is owed, what's my obligations to the state, my responsibility to the state, and the state's obligations to me. And when you look at the system now, we all know that the incentive system has been perverted, that the wrong values are rewarded. But how do you create values in society? How do you create incentive structures in society, right? The modern nation state is built around the individual, in the capacity of the individual to assert his right within that community while discharging his obligations to the community. We need to go back to making sure that it works. And the first layer of building communities and building nationhood has to be the family. We have to make sure the Nigerian family works. Nigeria does not work because the Nigerian family has ceased to work. The parents no longer have dignity. They have no control over their children. The nation has broken down at the most fundamental level, and we have to go back to fix it. We don't have communities anymore, simply because we don't have families anymore. How can we have a nation? There's no way. I studied architecture. When you want to build something, you start from the foundation, from the substructure. You build a superstructure without fixing the substructure.
Get a collapse.
What you're going to have is collapse, and that is what we are dealing with. We have to make sure all our policymakers, every decision we take in this country, there's clarity about how the Nigerian family, wherever they may live in this country, whether in urban areas or the rural areas, they thrive. The parents have dignity. Their children look up to them. Then around those families, we build communities. Then we start talking about a nation. Nobody talks about families. Parents are struggling. Parents have no control over their children anymore because they cannot fend for them. We can never have a nation if we don't fix that problem. The problem of Nigeria, and it's a global problem, but we'll focus on Nigeria, is that nobody cares about the individual anymore. And I'm not even talking about the individual, in anonymity. I'm talking about the individual within a community. And don't forget, a nation is a community, but it's not even a physical community. It's an imagined one. It's one in our minds. It's built around values. There has to be a consensus of values. We can have, conventions from now till tomorrow. We have to go back to first principles and make sure that Nigerian families survive.
Thank you very much.
Parents are giving the means of catering to their children.
Thank you. Gems, you dropped in your response there. First of all, a quick recap. A nation state is a kind of technology. I like that you've touched about the kind of system that we run in the country and having to import a system from wherever, UK, US, and then not giving it the homegrown approach and expecting it to work the way it works there. You talked about the relationship between the citizen and the nation state, and the fact that the modern nation state is built around the individual. I'd like to take you back, and of course, the rest of our panelists, back to the system of government. At some point in Nigeria, we had the parliamentary system of government, and then we moved on to the presidential system. As both works for us, which is the best, perhaps we should return to the parliamentary system of government. We're looking at what must change for Nigeria to work. What's your thoughts regarding this before I move on to the rest of the panelists?
Thank you for bringing this subject up. You know, there's something in biology called isomorphic mimicry. When an organism, you know, mimics its environment, they now use it in political science. For example, when a country goes outside and says, okay, there are institutions that work elsewhere, we should have it. And I'll give you an example. At some point, Nigerians decided that they wanted a Senate. They looked to America. Oh, America has a Senate. It's nice for us to have a Senate, to have a bicameral house. But why do they have a Senate in America? They have a Senate in America for a specific reason. America was founded by aristocrats who wanted to legitimize their aristocracy. And they needed that institution to make sure that the aristocrats continue to, you know, impose their will on the masses. And they were not shy. It's written in the Federalist Papers. Now we bring that institution to Nigeria. For what purpose? It's a totally irrelevant institution. It just costs us nothing but money, adding no value. And it's not just in the structure of the polity that we do this. We do it in several areas of our lives. And it's not going to work. We cannot build a nation by mimicking other societies. We have to have some trust in the system that have worked in our communities for centuries. Our history did not start when Europeans came here. You know, our people had ways of organizing themselves, right? The same way Europeans had ways of organizing themselves. What Europeans have done that we have not done, Europeans have modernized their institutions over time, and they are still modernizing it till tomorrow.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there.
Do not think our own traditional institutions are worthy of being modernized. When we look for a solution, we go abroad. It's not going to work. We have to stay here and see what works in the villages, where everybody knows their place, they know their responsibilities, they know the lines they must not cross. You want to build a community, the boundaries have to be clear. But we have to modernize those institutions. Then we'll start seeing the solutions to our problems.
If I hear you correctly, you're talking about the traditional system of government that we need to re-examine that, modernize it, and see if that will work for us.
Not necessarily. It's just that we need to take those systems, whether traditional, and some of them are even modern, because people locally are still solving their problems today. Those things are, you know, there are solutions that are thought out here that work. We should not sneer at them. That is all I'm saying. We should have the confidence to know that we can fix our problems if we approach them rationally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Muhtar Bakare, there for us. Professor Adeniran, what's your take on this?
I agree with Bakare that we can fix our problem, we can solve our problem. I disagree slightly about suggestion of going back to parliamentary system. If we remember what happened in the Senate, when the Senate presidency was zoned to Southeast, we had about 4 presidents of the Senate. Every senator from Southeast said, I am a potential president of the Senate. And so they were changing the presidency at will. If we go back to parliamentary democracy, we'll be changing government every week. is more of a corrupt system than the presidential. It's just because we did not operate the presidential system of government how it should be operated. The Congress in America oversees the executive. They curb excesses of the executive. But in Nigeria, the National Assembly does not. It's all yes, yes, yes to anything the executive brings to them. That is why we are having problems. We are borrowing at a very fast rate. The National Assembly is not controlling anything. And we are servicing debt with more than 90% of our budget because the National Assembly is not paying its role. I believe the presidential system of government is better than parliamentary. There is less corruption in presidential system of government if we do the right thing. Parliamentary, you just wake up and the prime minister is removed the next day.
Right.
One. So I think the system of government is good if we stick by the rules of separation of powers.
Okay. If we stay by the rules of separation of powers, the presidential system of government will work for Nigeria. Your belief is that the parliamentary system is even more corrupt than the presidential system. That is cause for a huge debate. But let me go to Ikechukwu Amaechi now and hear your take on this, Ikechukwu, if you're there.
Okay. The fact of the matter is that we are not reinventing the wheels, whether it is parliamentary or whether it is presidential. That is not where our problems lie. I go back to what I said earlier. It boils down to leadership. Don't forget, even the parliamentary system of government that people are praising today was what we had before the coup of 1966. It was because some people felt it was not working that they struck, whether for good or for bad. But we had the problems in the Southwest that led to Operation Waitier. It was all under presidential system of government, parliamentary system of government. So the problem is not the system of government. Presidential system of government is working in some countries, even Ghana, our neighbors here. It is presidential system of government. It is not as chaotic as we have here in Nigeria. The system of government is not the issue. The issue is the leadership, those who operate those systems. What values do they bring to the table? What is the worldview of our leaders? What do they consider as those things that must be done to bring about inclusiveness? Professor Adeniran talked about the 5 states or the 15 senators from the Southeast, each of them seeing himself as a potential Senate president between 1999 and 2007. What he forgot to mention was the role Obasanjo was also playing in all that, and how it is. Yes, he mentioned that in the US, where we claim to have copied our presidential system of government, the Congress, there are checks and balances. Each arm of the government has its own role to play. What do you do in our own system where the man who is elected the president or the governor becomes the de facto and de jure, controls every other arm of government, to the extent that a chief justice of this country was removed illegally and nobody raised a whimper. So whether you belong to the judicial arm of government, you can't cross a president who is as determined or who is as powerful as the presidents we have in Nigeria. Okay. The National Assembly is at the whims and caprices of the president rather than the other way around. Whatever the president says is what the National Assembly will do. Go to the states, it is even worse. The state houses of assembly are mere rubber stamp of the governors. So we can argue from now till next century about how to build a family, about how to do this, about how to do that. If we get it right in leadership recruitment, it took a Lee Kuan Yew to change the face of the Singapore.
Right.
And we have seen it in nations after.
Ikechukwu, I'm so sorry. Let me pause you there. You know, we still have a few questions to look at. But let me quickly say that if you're just joining us, this is Rescue Nigeria's monthly People's Parliament. We're talking about what must change for Nigeria to work. And we have distinguished panelists this month. We have Professor Ade-Oyeniiran, we have Mr. Muhtar Bakare, and also the distinguished journalist Ikechukwu and Amaechi. We've talked about, just to further clarify, when Mr. Muhtar Bakare was talking the other time, I was the one who asked about the system of government presently being run in Nigeria, whether it's the right one for us or not. That's what brought about the traditional form of government, and his take that we need to modernize it and let it evolve and see how that also can bear on governance. But let me return to the citizen, because all of you are panelists have talked about how the basic unit in the society is the family. And that brings me to the office of the citizen, the significance, the importance of the citizen in democracy in Nigeria and in governance, good governance in Nigeria. Let's return to the citizen. Isn't it that our leaders are from us, the citizens, the family, the nation? Isn't it that the nation is a reflection of who we are as a people? So let me start from you, Professor Ade-Oyeniiran. For Nigeria to change, let's look at the importance and the significance of the awareness of the citizen. Professor Ade-Oyeniiran, are you there?
He is on mute.
Citizen is not aware of what to do. The problem is courage to do so. The problem in Nigeria is everybody is afraid of consequences of standing up for what they believe in. That's the number one problem. Nobody wants to have a visitor in the middle of the night and get eliminated. That's one of the greatest problems Nigeria has. The issue of leadership, yes, Nigerians are known to follow their leaders when they do well. You will remember the Q culture was introduced in 1985. Until today, we've been doing that. When the leader introduces a good policy, people follow. The problem is sustainability of that policy. And I think Nigeria as a whole needs to be in a position to tell its citizenry that mere talking of or contributing to national debate will not bring about undesirable consequences. That is what is happening now. People are being eliminated if they say what the leaders do not want. So the leaders must ensure there is security of the citizenry, no matter whether they are for them or against them. I'm sure you all know what is happening in Southeast about people being eliminated simply because they said the wrong thing.
Okay, Prof, thank you very much. Let me come to Mr. Muhtar Bakare. Talk to us about your take about the power of the citizen in the Nigeria of today. Are we aware enough? Prof says we have failed in terms of courage and we are perpetually afraid of the consequences of our actions or, you know, standing up to leadership. What's your take on this? Is Mr. Muhtar Bakare still with us?
Yes, I'm here. The failure of Nigeria is the failure of the Nigerian elites, right? Because I actually believe that, and I'm being very categorical about that. I believe that the ordinary Nigerians have a lot of courage. I was on TV yesterday. I saw ordinary Nigerian women at the Senate, at the National Assembly, you know, putting their bodies on the line to demand changes to legislation passed by, you know, a male-dominated legislature that they did not like. So we have a history of ordinary Nigerians being willing to put their bodies on the line. You know, but Nigerians have been failed by their leaders, especially the political leadership. But there is a connection between all these. And the connection is that in Nigeria, just like in every other country in the world, you know, there's an establishment that controls the status quo, who have highly invested interest in the status quo. And they are not going to lay back and let it change. It's just the nature of the beast. That's how the world works. So, and for there to be change, people have to fight for it. And how do people get societies to change? You know, when people say, oh, go and get your PVC and vote, votes have never resulted in change anywhere in the world. What changes societies, especially in the kind of democracies that we run, right, are masses of the people organizing themselves and making it clear to their leaders that this is what we want. Chris Hedges says that the leaders have to be afraid of the electorate. Otherwise, there'll be no change. They have to be afraid that if we do not do what they want, they're going to throw us out. Those are the only things that make changes happen. So you go through a primary process. I can tell you today that the candidates are going to be establishment candidates. That is what parties are designed for. Parties are not designed to bring ideas that will change society to the fore. Parties are designed to exclude those ideas that will create change in society and bring those ideas that will maintain the status quo. The only way where parties matter is when you have single issue parties. Like when you have parties that are focused on labor issues. And when the establishment finds out that these parties are so popular, then all of them will widen the Overton window and adopt those labor issues. Then you get what the concessions that you get. So people have to organize themselves. The agitations of Nigerians have to be consolidated and organized. And it's not a religious conflict. It is not an ethnic conflict. It's a class war. And it's going on all over the world. The establishment is extracting more, right, from the system. And the oppressed are getting less. And people that are not getting enough have to come together and demand it. And when they make those demands, the parties will respond and adopt them. So even beyond getting your PVC, organize yourselves together and say, this is what we want. And I'm glad the women got something out of their putting their bodies on the line. So the courage is there.
Thank you very much.
Organization, we need to organize better.
Thank you very much. We need to organize better. We need to organize better. And I see the comments very shortly. I'll take the comments. But let me pivot back to Ikechukwu and Amaechi so that you can share your thoughts very briefly on this issue of citizens. You have said the recruitment process the national leadership recruitment process is a problem. But what about citizens? What's your take, Ikechukwu, Amaechi? And then I'll come to the chats.
I agree that the citizens have a role to play. Of course, there's no way you will exonerate the citizens entirely from blame in what has befallen Nigeria and Nigerians all these years. The citizens have a role to play. But again, if unless and until we get it right, Bakare just said now about the process, about the system, the way it works. Now, for instance, if it was about the establishment, Barack Obama couldn't have been president of the United States of America. Emmanuel Macron, that is the president of France today, used to be a minister, broke away from the parent party and formed a party, and within 2 years, he became the president. I just cited an instance with what happened last night. And I'm not saying it to indict APC as a political party per se. PDP and all of them, it is the same thing. We are talking about the citizens playing a role. Over 7,000 delegates, APC delegates from all over the country, went to Abuja yesterday to go and elect those who will superintend over the affairs of APC. What happened? They came out with a list who President Muhammadu Buhari wanted became the chairman. I watched on TV, there was one young chap who was aspiring for the position of youth leader. He was crying when he came out to say he was no longer going to contest. He couldn't even talk. He was crying because apparently he had been forced to step down. I saw former governor of Ogun State, Segun Oshoba, bring out somebody, a candidate, and he said he was going to apologize on behalf of the Yoruba nation because of the way they had treated that candidate. The candidate had to step down because the establishment had forced him to step down. So,
okay, so the point you're making is because of time.
The point I am making is the leadership has the bulk of the blame to take. Unless and until we get it right in terms of recruiting leaders who have a world view that can address all these issues we are talking about, the citizens cannot do anything. They don't have the power to do anything.
The citizens cannot do anything. They don't have the power to do anything. Let me pivot to the comments we have. We have just about 4 minutes left. W. Croft says, what's the role of the citizen? We've already answered the question. I believe our psyche as a people has been battered so much that we need to reorientate everyone. Our values as a people have been lost. That's Dapo Adegbaju. Ufoma Umukoro says, for any organization or nation to succeed, there has to be a vision. Nigeria is not working because there's no vision, no goal. We must have a leader who communicates a vision about what we should be and how we want to Bumi Agbi. He says we can talk about leadership and the ills in the individuals that run the government. A big factor to consider are the governed. We are in this predicament because we, the citizens, also have accepted and encouraged the system and all the leadership do. We need new orientation as a people, not just the leadership, but the governed as well. Bumi Adoni also asked the question, does our constitution allow for recall of elected officials, or do we have to wait until the end of the term? Wale Koft came back to say, who was it that said it is incumbent on the oppressed to wrestle his freedom from the oppressor. Change will never happen without any sacrifice. Who was it that also said, I'd rather die a free man than to live as a slave? So will we reach that point in Nigeria? Rome was not built in a day, as they say. We must remember that it was still built. So where do we start from and how? And Rescue Nigeria, the organizers of the show said, but the citizens are the ones who pick the leaders since that the Russian roulette. So those are the comments we've had. We have barely 2 minutes left. Let me come back to our panelists, the distinguished Muhtar Bakare, Professor Ade-Oyeniiran, and Ikechukwu Amaechi. Let me make the rounds with the three of you. Wherein lies the solution to Nigeria's change, the much desired change? Let me start with Mr. Muhtar Bakare.
I think I will start again. I will end where I started from. I think we need to put the individual at the center of decision making as a nation. We need to empower the Nigerian family and ensure that we have a vision for articulate a Nigerian dream, a vision for the country that everybody can buy into, so that when our children go through the educational system, or even if they don't, so long as they grow up here, if you ask them, what does it mean to be a Nigerian? There'll be some commonalities. People will say from every part of the country, this is what it means to be a Nigerian. And this is the kind of nation we're trying to build together. And we have to organize instead of agonizing. That is from a Nigerian activist that passed away some time back. That is just the slogan. We have to organize, and people have to demand from their leaders exactly what they want. They have to make their leaders understand that if they don't get what they want, they are going to vote them out of office.
Right. We need to organize, not agonize. We need to put the individual at the center of everything. Let me come to Professor Ade-Oyeniiran. Wherein lies the change? What's your take on that as we round up the conversation?
I agree that when citizenry organizes, they are effective. As we saw with the women in Abuja, they prevented a particular politician from getting to National Assembly. If we organize at every level, we'll solve our problem. But usually we don't get too many people to come around, because the historians or sociologists themselves said only unreasonable few, that's what the society called them, unreasonable few, will change the society. Majority are usually docile. So if we organize at every level, we'll change the country. Corruption, organize, will make people to be accountable for what they do in whatever position they find themselves. Security, if communities organize, they will solve the problem of insecurity in that community. If, for example, we allow vigilante group to take charge of the security in their community, they are more effective than even the government security group, who will solve the problem of security in Nigeria. And I think that organization is the key, but it has to be developed at grassroots level.
Organization is the key, but it has to be developed at the grassroots level, which brings us to the issue of local government governance and participation of our people at the local level. We barely scratched the surface of this title and topic for the People's Parliament this March. I hope that we can build on it in subsequent editions. But let me come to Ikechukwu Amaechi. What's your take as we round up? Wherein lies the solution to Nigeria's humongous challenges?
I still have to go back, like Bakare did, to where I started from. A kind of dilemma that we are in. Which one comes first? But I have given specific examples. Yes, the citizens need to organize. Yes, they need to come together. They need to mount pressure on the system. But the political elite must know that they are driving this country, doing what they are doing. They are only driving this country to the edge. I give an example of what happened yesterday. People every day tell you, go and get your PVC, vote out those that you don't like. How? In terms of presidential candidates, what do you do? If the recruitment process within the political parties through the primaries, if they throw up people that cannot change or cannot bring development to the country, you find out that even with your PVC, assuming that your votes count at the end of the day, you are not going to make any difference per se. The leadership in every society that has changed all over the world, go and check. The leadership must play the leading role, must drive the process. There must be one or two people who will say, this is the kind of society we want to build. There must be a vision.
Thank you very much.
What they want to do. We must have leaders that have a world view that captures all the values that we are talking about. Unless those leaders emerge on the stage, in the next 20 years, we'll still be talking about what we are talking.
This 1 hour conversation has been rich. It's been insightful. Yes, Wale, please, we need part 2 of this discussion. I totally agree with you. We barely scratched the surface. I mean, we were just getting to the solution part of it. Imagine what I think Professor Adeniran just said about local government and the place of the people. I mean, that's a different topic on its own. How laid back are we as a people? How involved are we as a people in the governing of our local government areas? It's a big topic we have today. I hope that Rescue Change Makers will have part 2 of this particular People's Parliament today. I'd like to thank our panelists. We are 3 minutes ahead of time to end it all. Is Ikechukwu back? I'd like you to finish. Are you back with us? Hello, Ikechukwu, are you there? Otherwise, we'll have to call it a day at this juncture. I have gems of statements and quotes that I've written from our panelists today. A quick take on some of what they've said. No consensus among the federating units about the kind of nation that we need. That's Ikechukwu, Amaechi there. Professor Adeniran talked about corruption not killing us. If we don't kill it, it will kill us finally. A nation state is a kind of technology, a system located in a sociological content. And there's a relationship between the citizen and the nation state. So I said professor, Mr. Muhtar Bakare, perhaps you should go get a professorial or maybe go for your doctorate if you haven't. You talked interestingly about isomorphic mimicry. I wish to take you on that further someday. You've also talked about the bicameral house and the costs of running governance in Nigeria. Professor Adeniran talked about the citizens lacking courage and being afraid of the consequences of standing up for what they believe. Professor Adeniran also said the parliamentary system of governments have been even more corrupt than the presidential one we're running at this time. Thank you very much, Ikechukwu Amaechi, distinguished journalist. Thank you for your points there. Wale Croft, I read your comment. You said all we have are polythifians and polylooters. Yes, we like good leadership, but where and who are the good ones who will step in and deliver Nigeria? Put the individual at the center. We have to organize, not agonize. 2 of our panelists talked about organizing in order to move forward. And I like to quote Muhtar Bakare, who said the failure of Nigeria is the problem of the Nigerian elites. Parties are designed to exclude ideas that will move it forward. Agitations of Nigerians have to be consolidated. I mean, I can go on, but we have to stop at this juncture. I'd like to thank all our panelists, distinguished all the way. Mr. Adeniran, thank you for your time. Mr. Muhtar Bakare, thank you very much for your insights. And Ikechukwu, Amaechi, you come off like an activist. Yes, we are all feminists, Chimamanda say. In the Nigeria of today, I guess we are all becoming activists. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this month's People's Parliament on behalf of Rescue Nigeria Changemakers. I am Anike Treasure, thanking you for joining us and asking you to join us again. There has to be a part 2 of this topic. What must change for Nigeria to work? Thank you, everyone, and have a very splendid afternoon.